Review Book 101 is all about the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a functional medicine expert, public speaker, and published author, no other than Dr. Kevin Smith.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Book 101, Dr. Kevin. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Okay. I am in my 25th year of practice. I'm a published author, a public speaker, and I've been helping thousands of people to help to feel better by looking at what's causing their problems. One of the things that I fix is autoimmune problems as it affects the thyroid.
Dr. Kevin, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about, does the immune system affect the thyroid? How does the immune system directly influence thyroid function?
That's a great question. About 90% of everybody that has thyroid disease has an immune system component. So that disease is called Hashimoto's. So 9 out of 10 people that have thyroid problems has a direct relationship with autoimmune issues. It's not everybody, but it's almost everybody. Now, how does this affect you? There's two primary components to the immune system. The Th1, which is like the Marines, they go in there and they attack parasites and bacteria and other types of invading pathogens. And there's the Th2 side. That's the memory side of the immune system. And so when there's an imbalance between Th1 and Th2, that causes an immune system response. So the immune system, which is like your white blood cells that are supposed to be protecting you and defending you against a virus or a bacteria, ends up destroying your own body tissues. In the case of Hashimoto's, it affects and destroys the thyroid gland. So what that means is that 9 out of 10 people have a problem with the white blood cells of your body attacking and destroying your thyroid follicles.
Dr. Kevin, what is the difference between Hashimoto's and Graves' disease in terms of immune involvement?
Well, they're both components of immune system dysfunction. Graves' disease is hyperthyroidism, meaning that the thyroid gland is too active. And hy, Hashimoto's typically affects people that have hypothyroidism or too little thyroid function. And so what's going on with that is that people typically suffer with weight gain, low energy, their hair falling out in clumps, their fingernails being cracked and brittle, GI problems like constipation or diarrhea, and a whole other constellation of problems. With Graves' disease, it's affecting that they're producing too much thyroid hormone, not too little.
Why are women more prone to autoimmune thyroid disorders than men?
I don't know the answer to that, but that's a very astute question. Um, Women are affected by thyroid problems more than men by a ratio of 8 to 1. So eight people out of or eight times more people are women that have these problems than men. Men can have thyroid problems, but it's much more rare than women.
Let's talk about the symptoms and diagnosis, Dr. Kevin. What are the early warning signs that immune dysfunction is impacting the thyroid?
So the way that you identify if it's an immune system problem, if it's actually Hashimoto's, is by doing a blood panel. The blood panel has um, a marker called TPO, thyroglobulin antibodies, and it also has antithyroglobulin antibodies. And if those show up in a certain level, then you have autoimmune disease related to thyroid problems. like I said before, it's not everybody that has this, but it's almost everybody, about 9 out of every 10 people.
How can someone distinguish between a typical fatigue and thyroid related fatigue?
Well, it depends on what's causing the problem. If it's identified via a blood test and you can pin it down to a thyroid problem, then we know that it's related to thyroid disease. If it's related to something else, like a nutritional deficiency or a gut problem or something like that, you would have to have specialized testing to identify those types of problems. There's no one size one. There's no one cure or one size fits all approach to this. Everybody has uh, a unique fingerprint that has to be properly assessed and properly identified through lab testing.
Mr. Kevin, how can someone distinguish between a typical fatigue or something that arises to the thyroid that makes more, well, let's say, more critical?
Well, the thyroid gland affects your body's ability to make energy while at rest. It affects your body's metabolic function. So, for example, if you have fatigue and there's no other symptoms that are going on, you don't have any like nutritional problems, you don't have any like sleep deprivation or anything like that, and if it's identified through lab testing, that's the primary way. In my office, everything is done through lab testing and it's objective. It's not guesswork. I don't guess with people's health. I send them out for lab testing. We take measurements and we base our conclusions on what those measurements may be.
Dr. Kevin, why do thyroid antibodies sometimes show up years before symptoms appear?
Because it takes time for the problem to manifest itself. Sometimes you can have a problem and you don't have any symptoms that show up immediately. Sometimes those symptoms can occur later on in life after the problem has been so bad and has caused such extensive tissue damage that it shows up as a symptom. For example, you can't feel cancer cells forming in your body. You can't feel your arteries filling up with plaque. It has to be so bad that it causes a symptom to actually occur. I suspect the same thing is true with thyroid disease.
Hmm.
People early on in their problem may not exhibit any kind of symptoms right away, but over time, when the problem has progressed to a certain point, that's when you start to see symptoms occurring.
Dr. Kevin, if we compare thyroid disease to a cancer, what's the big difference?
Thyroid disease typically doesn't kill people. I would think that the thyroid cancer could cause severe medical problems. It's more of an annoyance. Like, for example, a woman that has gained a lot of weight, even with diet and exercise, that may lead to other types of health risks later in life. But she's not necessarily going to be at a risk of dropping dead from that disease, or if her hair is falling out, or if she has constipation and lack of sleep. That's more of an annoyance than it is a critical life-threatening condition like a cancer.
Dr. Kevin, let's talk about the gut immune thyroid axis. How does a leaky gut syndrome contribute to autoimmune thyroid attacks?
So let's first define what leaky gut is. Leaky gut syndrome is when the walls of your small intestine get porous, like Swiss cheese, and the
Yes.
food particles will pass between the cell walls directly into the bloodstream. That causes the body to start to develop an autoimmune response, which also affects the brain. There's a direct linkage between gut health and brain health. And when you have an autoimmune disease, that's the earliest sign that it could be occurring is in the gut. So Every time that somebody has thyroid disease, bona fide thyroid disease, or I suspect Hashimoto's, I always check the gut to see if they have leaky gut because that can affect the thyroid gland later on in life.
Very well said, Dr. Kevin. Very well said. What role does gut microbiome diversity play in preventing thyroid flare ups?
So the microbiome is the ecology of bacteria that normally lives in the gut. And you have to have good, healthy, friendly bacteria in order to produce normal stool. It affects your immune system. It affects your body's ability to produce neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine. All of these neurotransmitters have specific critical functions in the brain to manufacture the thyroid. That's where the thyroid function starts in the brain, and so you have to have a healthy, normal gut to perform those functions. Also, there's a problem where you don't manufacture quite enough serotonin or dopamine, and combine that with leaky gut syndrome, and it causes a problem converting T4 hormone into T3 hormone. And so your body can have a deficiency of T3 hormone. T3 is the type of thyroid hormone that the body actually needs to affect the cells. And so if you don't have a healthy gut for whatever reason, if you have a sick microbiome, or for example, if you have a yeast infection, it can dramatically affect the thyroid.
Dr. Kevin, as a functional medicine expert, public speaker, as well as a published author, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, my long-term goal, I think, would be to help as many people as divinely possible to overcome their metabolic imbalances and have a normal, healthy life. One of the frustrations that I have is that people rely on drugs when they have a metabolic problem. Like, for example, if a person has been diagnosed with low thyroid disease and they go to see their primary care doctor or they go see an endocrinologist, they're going to give them hormone replacement therapy. Typically, it's in the form of a drug like Synthroid or levothyroxine. My goal as a functional medicine practitioner is to dig deeper, figure out the root cause of that, and help them overcome their problem without drugs. My short term goal, I think, would be kind of much the same thing on a smaller basis, treating every single person that I work with as individually. So, no two people have exactly the same history. They have a unique background, a unique genetic predisposition, unique exposure to toxic elements, things like that. And so I approach every single person uniquely and differently. There's no one size fits all when it comes to fixing this problem.
Good luck to your goals, Dr. Kevin, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be, of course, like you?
Well, I would say that education is a big component of this. By going to seminars and studying a lot of information to try to synthesize it down enables you to have the technical know-how to distill it down to a way that everybody on the street can understand it. Some of these concepts are very, very complicated, and people have told me that I have the ability to break things down into simple components so that the average guy on the street can understand it. And that takes a long time to acquire that skill.
Thank you for that advice, Dr. Kevin. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Well, the one book that I would say is very influential is by Datis Karazian. Dr. Karazian is he started off as a chiropractor. He's a functional medicine practitioner. He also has his PhD from Harvard University, and he wrote a book on thyroid disease that's very, very influential to a lot of people. It's about why does my thyroid still have problems even though I'm taking medicines. I know I'm paraphrasing it, but that's kind of the what the title is about. But I would say anybody that's really interested in checking this information out needs to read that book.
Thank you for that recommendation, Dr. Kevin. And let's talk about the triggers and prevention. What environmental toxins are most linked to triggering autoimmune thyroid responses?
Well, there's a lot to environmental toxins. There's toxins that are found in the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the food that we eat. All of those can accumulate. Now, when your body's a natural detoxifier. Normally wants to get rid of those toxins. And some of the organs that can detox your body include the liver, the kidneys, the skin, and the lungs. And so when toxic elements accumulate in your body faster than your body can naturally get rid of them, you develop what's called a toxic burden. And that toxic burden can affect the thyroid gland in a very, very significant way. People know that they have toxicity once they have low energy, or their muscles and joints hurt all the time, or if you're developing chronic headaches, or for example, if you develop brain fog. Those are all signs of toxicity, and that can really affect the thyroid gland in a significant way. One of the ways that I do that is through I treat that is through a process called liver detoxification. So the liver is there to filter the blood. And so the analogy that I could use for that would be like using a filter in a fish tank. If you ever look at a fish tank and the water seems cloudy and dirty, one of the ways to treat that is to just drop pills or drop drugs into the water. But that's not really the most effective way to deal with this. The proper way of dealing with that is to clean the gravel, clean the glass, change the filter, and do a partial water change, and then everything is a little bit better. It's the terrain theory of health. I kind of believe in that, as opposed to just taking drugs that just mask symptoms without actually going after the root cause of the problem.
Dr. Kevin, can chronic stress alone trigger thyroid autoimmunity, or does it require other factors?
Chronic stress can affect it because one of the hormones that is produced is called cortisol. Cortisol is produced by the adrenal glands that sit above your kidneys in your lower back. That can affect your body in a couple different ways. One of which is it produces belly fat production. Also causes brain fog, and it can affect the thyroid gland by overstimulating the thyroid gland.
Can the thyroid recover from autoimmune damage, or is it goal just to halt progression?
So autoimmune disease cannot be cured. Anybody that is telling you that they can fix your autoimmune disease is lying to you. While you can't cure autoimmune disease, you can put it into remission. So you can't flip the switch off like a light switch, but you can dim it down, kind of like the electricity that goes to the chandelier in your dining room. So you can dim it down and put it into remission so it's no longer causing mischief. And for people that have autoimmune diseases, that is the best hope that they have.
The best hope indeed. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, Dr. Kevin, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in the third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, Dr. Kevin, if you could just bust one myth about thyroid disorders, what would it be?
That the thyroid problems can be corrected mostly by taking drugs. We live in a drug culture, and one of the sources of frustration that I have all the time is seeing people that are endlessly suffering with thyroid disease and having all these symptoms, and they're taking the thyroid hormone just as though their doctor told them to do. They're not getting anywhere with that. So I think that we need a definite paradigm shift in how people address this type of problem.
Dr. Kevin, what's one thing listeners or viewers can do this week to support their thyroid immune health?
I think that the way to do this is to do a proper workup by having a functional medicine practitioner order some lab tests and find out exactly what the root cause of the problem is. The lab test is an objective way to measure your level of function. It's not invasive. It just requires a quick trip to the lab, and you can get a ton of information from it. Medical doctors should be doing these types of things, but the what they do has been going on since 1965. The names of the treatments may have changed a little bit, but the method hasn't changed at all.
Dr. Kevin Smith, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your upcoming book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Thank you for having me.
So, where do people can reach you, Dr. Kevin?
I would say that the easiest way to reach me is by via phone at 412-595-7332, and we can set up a discovery call. They're completely free. It's about a 10-minute conversation where you can give me a call and we can discuss what's been going on with you, and I can give you my best recommendation for the next best steps to take. So again, that's 412-595-7332.
How about your upcoming book, Dr. Kevin? What is all
Well,
about?
as soon as it's ready, I'll let you guys know.
Yes, please do come over and let's talk about it on Book 101 Review. Yes, people, let's support Dr. Kevin Smith because if you support him for sure, more and more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Kevin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.